It's a great pleasure to welcome to our 2022 Online Trend Summit long-term collaborator and friend of the food people, Amelia Boothman from 1HQ. Amelia inherently brings with her all of her specialism in using semiotics and cultural trends and drivers to inform brand and innovation strategy. Welcome, Amelia. It's fabulous to have you as a speaker once again as part of our lineup this year.
Thank you, Charles. It's an absolute delight to be back here again and to share some of this year's most exciting cultural trends and drivers.
Definitely can't wait to hear more about it. Amelia's going to bring to life the cultural driving forces and the human narrative behind top trends for 23-24. Just a note to attendees, if you're participating today as a Trend Hub Enterprise subscriber, you can immerse in all of the detail behind this keynote with the supporting presentations and videos in the 23-24 social and cultural trends presentations and predictions on Trend Hub. So, Amelia, as we've done in previous years, let's unpack some of the forces driving behaviour. They're at the root of food and drink trend manifestations as we move into 2023 and into 2024. On that note, I'll hand over to you.
Well, welcome everybody again. And here we are looking at those social and cultural drivers behind the food and drink trends that Charles and his team have discovered for us for the next couple of years. Here's the trends for the social and cultural drivers of 23 to 24. And let's start by understanding why it's important to look at these cultural trends. And the reason is the true meaning of a brand or a service comes alive through the visual, verbal, and experiential ways in which it's delivered. Each code or symbol can tell a different cultural story through the context it puts itself in. So take the simple hamburger. It can be one from, say, Impossible Burger, McDonald's, or a 3-star Michelin restaurant. Each has a very different value and meaning. It is these subconscious messages delivered through pack design, decor, communications, and menus which brings the experience to life. And so how do we identify these? Well, the food people and their team identify and gather the trends and analyze them and their strength across the world. But then we take the imagery and the context of these trends, the signs, codes, and symbols, and unearth the meaning in culture behind them, using the science of social anthropology, also known as semiotics. So I'm going to take you through those big culturally shifting stories today, the macro cultural trends that help to explain the food and beverage trends that Charles's team take you through. But underneath each of these are the cultural driving forces that I will also take you through a small selection of today. These can then be used afterwards to create more emotionally meaningful brands and innovation platforms. Here's the wheel of the driving forces behind each macro trend. Now, why are these cultural behaviors happening? Well, each of these macro themes has a number of underlying emotional needs and behaviors that can explain why we desire and want these new food trends. It's these that each of you need to tap into. Some feel very familiar because they're ever present. Others have emerged, and many are not completely new. And when we delve back into the depths of time, we can see this as a cyclical driver repeating itself. So let's start with our big global theme this year, under pressure. In a less stable world where people are struggling to maintain control of their health and finances, they're looking to take direct action to relieve the pressure. In these more straitened times, ways to help make food more healthy, affordable, and accessible are being more and more widely sought after. We're embracing the humble and the more worthy options, brands which can also help us regain the sense of control of our lives and health using innovation are also widely welcomed. Conversely, as a way out from this difficult world, we look for distractions which take us away from all of this, experiences which can displace us into another world of sensory enjoyment and that have some kind of heightened appeal to deliver this. If we look at our macro cultural driver underneath this, the first of the four is unlocking time and money. Food, oil, and water have always been the weapons of global control, and currently ever more so. This is therefore driving behavioural action and intervention in order to survive. Food as an essential is inevitably at the forefront in the drive to economise in these tough economic conditions. And so it's becoming ever more focused on delivering financially appealing options. People are therefore embracing these simpler, humbler choices and learning to live with less. not only because of the economic times, but because this also speaks to local solutions, which itself is in tune with the reduction of carbon footprints and the lowering of the risk to the supply disruption. Many are also having to work harder to make ends meet, and so any food that saves time and effort will also be welcomed with open arms. So this begs that question, that why has food become ever more focused on delivering these economically appealing options? Well, our brains are hardwired to maximize exploitation of the physical environment, with primate brain size linked with the complexity of food procurement. The more challenging, the bigger the brain, and humans have the biggest. In times of comfort and excess, these natural impulses are suppressed. But in times like these of economic and environmental stress, they become activated and can dominate thinking in an individual on an everyday level. The promise of consumerism was abundance and choice, but tough economic times, worsened by environmental and political stress, have made people all over the world question this. The rise of food insecurity and food poverty as well-known concepts shows just how far this modern crisis has come. Food banks have become normalized, with levels of food scarcity in wealthy nations not seen since post-war rationing. However, in resource-stressed times, human beings are uniquely able to generate novel and highly effective solutions to everyday problems. Typically, these involve inverting the usual way of doing things. Whereas we intuitively discard everyday packaging, for instance, it can be used to solve deep problems. Brazilian Alfredo Moses' simple bleach in a bottle lamp is virtually zero cost in its way of helping the needy to adapt and thrive. And as food is the only consumer product human beings need to survive, it's inevitably at the forefront in economizing in tough economic conditions. From new and novel ways to recycle, preserve, and reinvent food to creating budget versions of fine dining dishes, the world of food has taken an almost activist role in helping people to adapt to the modern, harsher economic realities of today. And here we can see a picture of a budget example from Matatos in Sweden. So we also ask, why has there been a move in food towards embracing these simpler, humbler options? There's always been a tendency to overvalue the past and to romanticize it and elevate it to nostalgic heights. This typically involves idealization of simpler times, when life was slower and easier, and we demanded less from the world. And this world was populated not by fancy, complicated products, but by elementary goods that provide for all our real needs. Correspondingly, in all cultures, there are a set of traditional foods used as foundational references, with the associated language baked into the everyday. Tea serves this purpose, bonding families, oiling the social wheels, and providing a physiological boost, with phrases like, X is not my cup of tea, meaning I don't like it, really illustrating its key place in the psyche. The foundational identity of certain forms of food and drink therefore enables it to span the socio and economic strata, meaning it will have everyday, mundane versions and elevated fine versions. The sandwich may seem like a mundane and mass market product, but it's always found a place in the most rarefied social settings, like the context of, say, afternoon tea. Today, it's particularly appealing to resort to simpler foods, not only because of the trying economic times, therefore, but because it speaks to local solutions, subsistence problems, which is in tune with the reduction of our carbon footprints. However, there's always room for premiumizing humble offerings, such as this online example of toast being topped with blood orange and honey. Simple doesn't have to mean lower quality. On the contrary, making something humble well can take extraordinary skill. Our next question is, why has there been a move towards happily learning to live with less? Traditionally, all over the world, lack of effort has been coded quite negatively, as laziness even. And this is often taken on the meaning of sinful behavior, with work and effort coded as morally good and purifying. However, conserving energy is simply beneficial in evolutionary terms, and all animals do as little as possible with the energy they have. In recent times, the endless demands made on people from work and family has begun to be re-evaluated in light of mental health issues. More and more, there's an understanding for prioritizing mental and emotional health. For example, Simone Biles's high-profile quitting at the Olympics resulted in an outpouring of support. The problem is that for the most part, people still are experiencing an almost unbearable level of demand on their attention. New York University psychologist Adam Altler has spoken about the fact that new obsessions with our screens means that any spare time we do get is now largely taken up using our phones and tablets, depriving us of the quality time we so crave. Therefore, despite often working less, we feel like we have less time to live than ever before. So any food that saves time and effort will therefore be welcomed by most people, from discovering new ways to make your own food quickly to finding even easier apps and delivery systems. Food is coming to be viewed as having the power to liberate us from our prison of time and empower us to do the things we really want to do, such as this ramen noodle online hack we see here. Let's move on to our next big cultural trend: displace and distract. A reaction to bad news is to escape, seek comfort, safety, and indulge, but considerate indulgence, not showing off when others are suffering. Food is a primal way to evoke otherness and signal to yourself and others that you're open to exploring new possibilities. And exotic food from faraway places is therefore growing in its allure. The world is also waking up to the reality that there are more than 5 senses, opening up the possibility of heightened human experience in new and revolutionary ways. And this is increasingly prominent in the world of food. It's also becoming normalized for technology to blend with the person, and so increasing the move towards merging the digital reality of food and our appreciation of it. So why is heightened sensory experience increasingly prominent in the world of food? Well, we see here with supersensory that the central way that human beings have always initiated altered states of consciousness is through stimulating and even overloading the senses. In tribal societies, using touch, movement, smells, sounds, such as music and loud noises, and taste, along with strong visual signals, were and still are key to inducing a sense of the special. And as user experience has become part of a modern life and the marketing of optimized life, we have increasingly embraced the idea that controllable sensory inputs can have a profound effect on our consciousness and well-being. Synesthesia, which is the mingling of 2 or more kinds of sensory information, has also become more recognized and sought out. And the world is actually waking up to the reality that there are more than 5 senses, opening up the possibility of heightening human experiences in new and revolutionary ways. And these other senses include balance, acceleration, vibration, temperature, kinesthetic sense, and pain and time. So there's many more that can be used. And food as play is increasingly using this relationship we have with sensory experience. Playfulness in eating experiences, such as this online example of mixing a kids' game, Connect 4, with cookies, are becoming increasingly common. And the advent of ASMR, autonomous sensory meridian response, if you haven't heard of it, and the mukbang eating from Korea, videos on TikTok and YouTube, watch them at your peril, shows the high interest in close attention to sensory experience. They're quite extraordinary. Our next question then takes us to why there has been an increasing move towards blending the digital reality of food and our appreciation of it. Well, in fact, virtual reality is nothing new. Human beings come equipped with a natural virtual reality mechanism, the imagination. And we have an extraordinary ability to synthesize sensory experience, whether through intentional generation of imagined things or unintentionally through our dreams. And humans alone in the animal kingdom actually share their fantasies. Much of our reality is actually fantasized reality, with historic narratives powering socially accepted truths and shaping our behavior from moral through to ethical standpoints. So the self has therefore always been actually constructed by this and the stories of others around us. And in the modern world, it's become increasingly normalized for technology to blend with the person, with medical implants, wearable tech, social media, etc. We now feel we are made of more than just our flesh and bones, and our identities thereby are distributed muchly outside the body. And every year our being blended with tech is more and more taken for granted, as we can see. So the conceptualization of food and drink is simply a part of this process to marry concrete reality with the imagined reality of the digital. From blending NFTs and the metaverse to the creation of virtual brands and the ever more sophisticated ways food is being ordered online and delivered, as we can see in this Taco Bell wedding where you get free wedding food, which is one example. Let's move on to our next macro cultural trend, Treasure Planet. As we are more clearly seeing the physical effects of global warming, we're learning to respect and treasure all elemental products of the earth, many of which are unseen, overlooked, and previously not valued. With food and its packaging being immediate and relevant as a product to create, it's no surprise that people have not only accepted but welcomed food that eschews waste, food that conserves and enriches the land and sea, and synthetic or artificial food alternatives. That's because of the clear environmental and ethical benefits. All of this is driving food towards a place of harmlessness and even restoration of the Earth's former glory now. People are also now wanting to demonstrate their quality and status to those around them by dialing up their visible green credentials as well. So the obvious question, why is it that food that eschews waste becomes not just acceptable, but attractive? Well, let's understand the culture behind that. In all human societies, high status has been signalled through obvious and even ostentatious wasting of resources. Think peacock's tails. It's a positive hindrance for everyday life, but displays the strength of the peacock to all the peahens to see. And humans buy unnecessary objects and spend money in obvious ways to display their ability to waste as well. But we see this anti-waste revolution with the environmental crisis finally permeating into our collective consciousness. We've begun to enter a new phase of modesty, where it comes to our relationship and the wastefulness of it. So ostentatious displays of waste are becoming seen as not only unnecessary, but shameful. Germany's approach to wealth with modesty and sober rationality is now becoming the model of how we relate to our resources. But as Kermit the Frog once said, it's not easy being green. It also remains the case that people want to demonstrate their quality and status to those around them. And the one way to now dial up their green credentials in a way that most of us can't. This is because the modern consumerist world has made waste so easy to do compared to not wasting things. So the new anti-waste drive, in fact, takes special knowledge and comes at a premium cost. The cheapest and most wasteful kind of food, fast food, is known to all and has no mystery. But by contrast, the new anti-waste foods require inside knowledge, new and innovative techniques, and extraordinary product practices. For example, like this one here, where we see ex-dairy goat as meat. All of this is a perfect storm for the ethical and the premium combined. And now let's look at our last large cultural trend, health-wise. And we often have health within our wheel. And specifically this year, we're seeing a focus on helping humans who are struggling to make the right decisions to become healthier. And so there's an increasing emphasis on accessible ways to improve health through food. Human behaviour is resistant to change, and health is often seen as a loss in experiential benefits as well. More than ever, we're seeking new, clever, easier, and less expensive or arduous ways to change habits and to increase health and longevity. Clever swaps using technology, time-restricted eating. In the world of food, the secrets of health can be more easily accessed by anyone now, as technology, processes, and physical spaces are being exploited in new dynamic ways for the benefit of all. As scientific and technological activity aims to extend lifespan, food is becoming more focused on empowering people to live longer and more energized lives. So why are we doing this? Well, the magic of longevity, essentially living a healthy, long-lived life, and even more cheating death has been an ongoing obsession for humans for millennia. Biblical figures like Methuselah and alchemists searching for the philosopher's stone to produce the elixir of life shows how this quest to thrive indefinitely goes back in all time for human story. In recent times, researchers such as Michael Poulain have identified a handful of places around the world where we see extraordinary longevity. These blue zones, like in Okinawa in Japan or Sardinia in Italy, have social, psychological, environmental, and physical features that create this optimal living condition. However, there is also scientific and technological activity that aims to radically extend the human lifespan. The newer sciences of epigenetics and epigenomics along with more widely available DNA testing, are enabling us to start to create highly customized lifestyles, including diets. The Zoe app, for example, empowers users to do exactly that by testing their gut biome, their blood sugar responses. You can actually tailor your diet to minimize disease-causing inflammation. And it's no surprise that food and drink is powering the sustained health and longevity. Now, for example, Danone China have created powdered drinks designed to aid healthy aging, and they have nootropics or adaptogenic ingredients. And this shows how science and technology are suffused in the world of food to make them bursting with this elixir-like properties. So that's our quick guide around some of the most exciting cultural drivers and the macro cultural drivers. So that leaves the final question, how to apply these cultural trends into more motivating brand or innovation platforms. And the issue we find with trends is everyone's got lots of them, but which should you use and how do you implement them to your brand in a unique and meaningful way? And it's the cultural drivers and their semiotic codes that can be carefully selected to represent the unique meaning of your brand in culture and society. Overlay these with the food codes, and together you get your own special, unique proposition. And that may sound very clever, but in fact, you already have many of the ingredients to do within your business. It's just creating the right jigsaw puzzle and then implementing that consistently using those relevant semiotic signs, codes, and symbols from those cultural drivers. And so it remains for me to say thank you, Charles, for asking me along to take you through that overview. And do let me know if you have any questions. We'd be really happy to answer them.
Amelia, wow, thank you so much for sharing that detailed insight behind those broader cultural forces that relate directly to the food and beverage trends that are cost of feeding, humble hero, reliable, convenient, super sensory, phygital world, what waste, and accessible health. Hugely insightful, very, very thought-provoking. And yeah, to your point, I think right at the end, it's about the marriage of the food and beverage trends and those cultural drivers to develop that emotional connection, isn't it? That deeper meaning. And if we understand the deeper meaning, we can develop products, propositions, higher level platforms that connect at a deeper level with consumers. So thank you so much once again for joining us. Great pleasure to welcome you as a keynote speaker for our 2022 Online Trend Summit. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Charles. It's been a pleasure.